Welcome to Talent Thrives Here, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of leadership and team management with trailblazers who know how to nurture talent in high-stakes industries. I'm your host, Lance Laforte, and today we're thrilled to have a true visionary in the media and entertainment space. Our special guest is Bruno Sargeant, a strategic product leader with over 20 years of experience scaling platforms and tools across film, games, XR, and cloud technologies. He's worked with giants like Disney, Netflix, and Major League Baseball. And he's held key roles at companies including Sony, Unity, Autodesk, and Crystal Dynamics. He's been involved with many businesses during rapid growth and expansion. Bruno, welcome to our show. It's great to have you here.
Hey, Lance, I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for inviting me on board.
Great to have you here. Bruno, you've managed teams across massive shifts in the entertainment industry. Anyone that you and I know right now is dealing with a lot of disruption. And you've worked from traditional post-production to real-time virtual tools. Before we jump into sort of more of the leadership stuff, I'm curious, what are some of the sort of hot topics that you see right now on the forefront, areas where tech is reshaping how teams operate and what you see and what you're managing to navigate, I guess, right now?
Well, I mean, the hot topic that's hitting our industry right now is obviously AI. And it's touching every aspect of the content creation pipeline and production as a whole.
Yeah.
And it's probably the largest shift I'll see in our industry during my lifetime, but it's not the first time we've come up against these kinds of transitions and changes. A few years ago, it was all about the metaverse, and that was
Right.
the hot topic, and we all rallied around that. Before that, It was virtual production. These innovation waves hit us with regularity. And while this is probably the most profound one, it's not something that, we haven't been through before.
Right. And I'm curious how, I'm watching it's almost daily, and I'm sure a lot of us are. What do you see as big shifts, like whether it's visual effects or gaming, how AI, because that seems to be what everyone's looking at right now, is how do you have any forecasts or any predictions on how that's going to impact what we do and how we do it?
Yeah, I mean, as a broad sweeping statement, I think what we'll see is innovation is going to come at us much faster. We'll be delivering products and content at a much faster pace.
Right.
On the tools side, the market's shifting. I think we'll see a fragmentation of the traditional providers of tools for our market as the barriers to entry get reduced. So smaller teams can enter at a lower cost entry point and solve niche market problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll see some of that impact our business. And there's a term that from Autodesk from years ago called fail fast forwards. I think we'll see a lot of that happening. So innovators trying out ideas, abandoning the ones that don't work very fast, latching onto the ones that do, and carrying them forwards. Right,
fair. Yeah, I can think of like working in video game studios where as we got closer to a deadline, we look at all the features and go, well, that one's just not going to make the game. We start cutting features because it was too many months in development and there was no way we're going to hit the launch date. But I again, imagining newer tools, we'd be able to iterate faster. We'd be able to, to your point about Autodesk, we'd be able to fail quicker because we could create 10 or 20 things in the time it used to, take to do one or two. And the other thing that I keep thinking of is advertising agencies where creatives would stay up overnight trying to get something done for a deadline on Friday. And all of the sort of pre-production and the concept work and all of that part of the pipe, whether it's games, VFX, advertising, any sort of media that's graphical, I feel that front end is going to be able to create, 25 or 30 or 100 versions by midday, at least rough sketches of. Whereas, that would have taken weeks with a team to do before. Am I overstating that or not? I'm curious how you see that part of it.
No, I don't think you're overstating it. I did a stint in the previs business, and That's an industry that, I mean, my opinion, I'm sure I'll get some feedback on this, but my opinion is that industry is going to need to evolve very fast
Yeah.
and find new avenues for business.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say non-creative, but when just about anybody can churn out um, uh, iterations and design ideas with very little creative input.
Yeah.
That's certainly going to put a challenge on that industry. That's not to say that industry is going away, because right now,
Yeah.
um, generative AI it's not very directable. So
Right.
there's still definitely a need to have that creative input, but this
Yeah.
is going to evolve really fast.
Well, it also reminds me of like the early 90s when, the Macintosh computer really started to get some decent programs, and it hit graphic arts first, I think, and media and production and print media.
Yeah.
And I remember it distinctly. And the signage industry, I was working in a sign shop when I was a kid, and all of a sudden these vinyl letter cutters came out. But what we got was a huge volume of very poorly designed signs because, they democratized the tools. We were hand painting signs, for 30, 40, 50, 100 years. And I feel the same sort of in every digital evolution. As the price of the tools and the tech comes down, it opens the gate to people who maybe are good operators but haven't got traditional creative training. And so it reminds me of the early digital tech hitting VFX, where all of a sudden we could produce lots of movies. They didn't all look great, but there was lots of volume. The floodgate opens because it doesn't take 6 years to shoot a movie with, live actors and physical sets and physical creatures anymore. I think Phil Tippett had a comment once about something like that, saying, he thought we'd spend more time on story now that we could develop films faster. He said, nope, we just developed way more films and they weren't very good, so anyhow, I think I'm down a rabbit hole. So I'm curious again from your perspective, things that you're seeing, things that are exciting you, in this sort of evolving. It feels very disruptive right now, right? There's sort of like there's a fracture in several industries where no one's exactly sure what the new promised land looks like, but everyone's searching for pieces of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, I've taken a step back this summer, and I was looking at where I should focus on personally,
Yeah,
and where I want to take my career going forward. And it's almost like every day it's like, oh no, it's this thing. Oh no, that was yesterday's news. Now it's this thing, and now it's this thing. Um, but there is some settling happening across the business. I mean, also we're into production season, so people actually have content to push out. So that
right.
that changes the game a little.
Yeah,
And so we're seeing more actual work get done now. Um, but there is some settling happening, and there's some
yeah,
areas that I think are particularly interesting. AI is going to touch everything that we do,
yeah,
and by trade, I'm a product manager or a producer. So I'm looking at how AI will impact the role of the product manager on a day-to-day basis. Not necessarily building AI tools or AI into tools, but how will my job change?
yeah,
And I've already seen the impact of it. So, 3 or 4 years ago, it would take months to put out a product requirements document, a PRD. Now you can churn them out in a couple of days. And yeah, some of the data might need, double checking, but it's a good framework. It's a good prototype
right,
for a product document. And you can, that's just the start of it. So you can come out with a reasonably solid proposal, an idea, and you can move quickly into ideation, prototyping, testing, and put out, potentially a prototype to your market in a much shorter time frame. So I think that's one area I'm focusing on, or I want to focus on, and I'll see significant impact. That's aside from the actual tools themselves.
right. Yeah, and I think too we'll be able to, that grunt work, grind, whatever it is,
Yeah.
we'll be able to query databases so much faster and smarter, because the agent that we built is probably going to do that work rather than, um, you know, I don't know, naming conventions, protocols. I think a lot of things could potentially shift. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, we're on. I think it feels like we're at the precipice again. We're at the beginning of something brand new,
Yeah.
or an evolution of another wave's about to start, or it's in process. Like I've been watching VFX producers putting out tests that they're working on, and they're getting much better, but you can still see they can't direct. If you had a client coming in and say, pixel number 356 needs to be read, forget about it.
Yeah.
Or can you make that hand move a little bit more? How much more? 5%, 10%? That ability to dial it at a granular level, it's just not there. So I think where it fits, and you've seen this too, is short form, 30 or 60-second TV commercial type format, where you've got multiple images. None of them really last more than 3 to 5 seconds on screen, so you can cheat, I think. That's what I've been watching. Is I think there's a great application for some of this digital visual AI, in the sense that as long as there's strong narration and there's a strong story, the images I don't know, what I find is the longer the film is, the more it's distracting, because you start seeing the cheats, you start seeing the falling or the failing of the tech. Just eye alignment doesn't work, or somebody's talking and something doesn't that we've spent decades trying to get it right, trying to get lip sync to be perfect, trying to get eye movement to be perfect. And these new tools, it's sort of like they feel to me like they're 30 years behind us. And the thing that this craft that you and I work in has really mastered for decades, building believability. And so I think until they can kind of plug it in and make it do that again, it still feels somewhat distracting. That sound fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, we're just beginning down this road, and I think we'll see a lot of we will see a lot of AI find its way into the content that we view, and it'll evolve and improve over time. It's the path to this being a product is going to take a little longer, and we're already seeing services emerge that embrace this new technology and present these solutions like they're tools, but actually there's an army of people behind the scenes working on them.
Right.
So, there is still a role for VFX artists. Where they're working, what they're doing is going to change, and the tools they're using are going to change. But there is still a need for new and evolving services around solving these problems. Right. I think the challenge comes around how do you take these services, like the ones you just described, and how do you spin them into product and make them work for a broader market, for a creator market that doesn't necessarily or doesn't have the familiarity with the large service bureau business model for entertainment. So I think we'll see some challenges around that. We already are.
Yeah. And I think of like the small agency content creators that are just putting stuff out on social media. Mm-hmm. Some of the tools they're using are subscriptions are $200, $300, $400 a year, and they've maybe got a suite of 5 or 6 tools they're using. So again, the entry level is nowhere near what it would have cost 10 or 15 years ago. And while the tools might not be as good as the higher level stuff being used in VFX and games, the target, depending on what they're putting out, where they're putting out, it might be good enough,
Yeah, I think the market loosely could bifurcate into 2 different times. And again, I'm talking about technology for content creation, could bifurcate into 2 different types of solutions. One is it's good enough. And then the other one, I kind of call it the Emerald City type, where there's an army of people behind a curtain actually doing the work. But on the surface, if you just look at it, you can't tell the difference from their websites. Right. Just the quality of one is much better and the cost is higher.
Yeah, and I often think of this too, like the trained eye. Whenever you go to a movie with people who are in the movie business, they see things on screen that the average person wouldn't have a clue.
Exactly.
Why did they move that? I wouldn't have comped that way. Those sort of things I always find very entertaining, being in the audience with a VFX crew, because they granularly go through what they see on screen. So Bruno, any other? You've worked as Radical, have you not? Am I correct in that? Were you doing a consultancy or?
I'm an advisor for Radical. Actually, I wanted to talk about what they're working on, because that kind of fits into the idea of tools shifting and evolving and becoming um, uh, and moving to platforms. So we'll see this across our industry. But previously, I was working at Sony on their C Media platform. That's a digital asset management platform and collaboration tool. And that gave me some insights into how the industry is shifting, again, away from post-production companies towards hosted services and platforms. And in the process, we're seeing tools become more accessible and easy to use. Radical's an example of that. They have a 3D platform, and they've solved some problems that were problems we were looking at, 10, 15 years ago at Autodesk with Motion Builder. I remember sitting down at Weta and showing Joe Lettieri our attempt at concurrent collaboration in Motion Builder. And there was a group of artists standing around going, I'm not sure we really need this. And then fast forward to today, I'm firing up Radical, and there we have it, and it's working, and we're all working on a scene together, and there seems to be no lag. And I did no specific, anything complicated with the setup, and it's running in a browser. There is a real application for this, and beyond that, the tools have become. I'm not a 3D animator. There's a reason why I went into editorial. But the tools have become much easier to use, which makes them more accessible, which opens the opportunity for 3D to become more pervasive and take it outside of the creator space. So I think there's a huge opportunity, I mean, obviously in education, but in other markets for 3D and collaboration tools for, product retail. It's always been in construction and visualization, but I think we'll see our tools become, our traditional entertainment industry tools become used more pervasively across generic industries or other industries.
Interesting. We'll see. How about AI in games? Asset creation, music, procedural content. Do you want to talk about any of those?
All of that. So I think that's where we'll see probably the most profound change.
Yeah.
I worked at Unity, and the traditional game engine industry is, this is my opinion, is going to get turned on its head as AI, as game companies and game creators embrace AI, not just for things like characters, but for pushing out final content.
Right.
And having, player-generated, player-directed gameplay, things like that. I think it makes it really exciting and opens up new markets.
Right. Totally agree. I'm curious also beyond, all the tools and everything, as a product manager, as someone who has to, direct people and communicate, are there, any tricks that you find have been very helpful at getting the team to come along and get engaged in, during challenging times? I'm just curious if there's any from the rule book of Mr. Sargeant, if there's some tips at all in there.
Give the
people.
team agency in the decision making. So try not to be top down and directive. And I'm actually looking forward to going back to the office. I've been hiding in the mountains for the entire pandemic, and I'm just getting ready to move back to civilization and actually to see work colleagues in person. So I think that's going to help a lot. I know that might be unpopular, but I'm totally up for that now.
Well, to me, it's like we have a whole culture there of working in studio that we never had the option to go remote before. So it's kind of like this Pandora's box got opened. But I truly think there was a group of folks that miss that community of being close to their colleagues and on a functional or dollar for dollar sort of sense, training was easier. You could grab 3 people at a desk and show them a technique or something, and boom, and 3 other people were listening in over your shoulder, right? That kind of organic learning. Really brutally hard to do that on get on a Zoom call, and it's just very different. So I appreciate going back. It's got some huge benefits, I think.
In a creative environment, being able to have some kind of physical presence with the people you work with. I'm not saying you have to do it all the time,
Yeah.
but I miss personally having a physical presence with my work colleagues. And I've worked
Yes.
in a role where it was entirely remote and there was absolutely zero direct contact. And I
Yeah.
just found that the day-to-day became very transactional. You just
Right.
did your list.
Yeah.
And that's okay for some jobs, but we're in a creative industry. Even, we creative people build creative tools for creative people.
Yeah.
You need to have some kind of debate and argument and consensus and discussion around the problems that we're trying to solve, and some
Yeah.
kind of in-person contact will be helpful.
I completely agree. I think like we make better stuff because of the friction.
Yep.
Sometimes, that debate and that push and pull and some wins and losses. And I don't know. I always thought that was where the magic comes from. It's not linear,
Yeah.
right? It's an organic kind of beast on its own sometimes. Plus, just the idea of making buddies at work. You go for lunch together and dinner and drinks, and I think it probably creates a culture where people don't want to leave if they enjoy their colleagues, and it's again kind of fractured through this remote thing. You don't have that kind of glue that holds the team together as much as we used to have. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, that's fair. I
Yeah.
miss that.
Yeah, ditto. Me too. Yeah. Well, Bruno, look, I'm just conscious of the time. I know our audience is probably radically watching three screens and firing up something on their phones and driving. I have no idea, but they're probably suffering some ADHD. But I really appreciate you being on the podcast today. Thank you very much. If people want to catch you, I'm sure they can find you on LinkedIn. Yes.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn.
Excellent, great. And look, thanks again, as I mentioned, and hopefully we can have a chat down the road. I'd love to see, in a year or two, what the whole industry looks like, how it's shifted and how it's changed. So thank you again for being on the show. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for the time.